Hello, and welcome to Friends with Deficits, the Season 3 finale. My name is Adam Sultan, I'm your host, and my next friend is none other than Allyson Lipkin, who goes by the stage name Dee Dee Dagger. She's a great artist, sax player, performer, and her and I share something in common, and that's tension myositis syndrome, TMS. Maybe you've heard of it, but you certainly will in the next hour. This is a special, longer than usual episode, but I hope you'll enjoy it. We also have a special guest to intervene once in a while when we get our facts wrong or need some clarification. This might be a little bit controversial since this topic is about a condition that affects our body but has a lot to do with our mind. So if you don't think the mind and body are connected, then maybe you'll be a little bit skeptical. You might be anyway. Or you might be curious. I hope you are curious and enjoy my interview with Allyson Lipkin.
It's real interesting how this came about, the idea of TMS, because I absolutely had never heard of it. And I remember I was doing this really big performance. It was Dee Dee Dagger, and it was like I was collaborating with this incredible dance group, but I had like a DJ and a tuba player and like this huge crowd, and I was sitting with my photographer friend Mark Zell, who came there, and I was like, God, I am just in the worst pain right now. It's in my hips, it's killing me. I just was like complaining, and he said, have you ever thought about TMS? And I was like, no, I don't know what that is. He's like, my wife has it. And the thing that I know about Mark Zell is that he's a scientist, and his wife's a librarian and also a scientist. So it was so interesting, the contrast to me, because they're scientists, but they believed in this sort of non-scientific thing, TMS, where no one could prove really that there was a connection. I guess we should tell, I'd like for you to tell whoever's listening to this what TMS is, because you probably have a better definition of it than I do.
Maybe we'll ask our expert.
Yes, we'll definitely ask the expert.
That's when the segue happens.
Yeah, here's what TMS is.
Hi, Adam. This is Laura Heidrich with the Pain Cure Clinic. We provide health coaching for people with chronic pain and other chronic conditions based on a mind-body approach, first recognized by Dr. John Sarno, called tension myositis syndrome. In its simplest form, tension myositis syndrome really just means muscle tension and inflammation. And the idea behind this is that for most people with chronic pain, the pain is very real. Let's make no mistake about that right off the bat. But it's being generated by your mind psychologically. So you're holding tension, which flows down into your body and creates chronic pain. And there are lots of clinical studies that really back this up now. At first, Dr. Sarno was, maybe not believed and not really supported by colleagues, but he wrote 3 books anyway and cured a lot of folks. And now they're actually doing some clinical studies, and more people are getting better all the time. So we hope this is heading in the right direction, because there are millions of people in the United States who are suffering from chronic pain really unnecessarily. It's become an epidemic, and, from having, gone through some of this yourself.
Let me touch back into your history, because you said this happened 4 or so years ago, but was that just when you heard about TMS? Like, had you had this chronic pain going before that?
I've had chronic pain since my early 20s. But I remember I started a glass business, and I was so stressed out about it because I was a freelancer, basically, and I was making glass lamps, and I wanted success so bad. I wanted to be independent. I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and it was a dream of mine, and I had quit this fantastic mural painting job to do my own thing, and I was like kind of deep in alcoholism as well, and like a total morning, noon, and night pot smoker. So, I did not have any chance of succeeding, basically. But I would come home have just this horrific pain in my back. and I would take long like salt baths, and it would relieve it, but then it was always there the next day. So I don't know what your history is, but I have an abusive background that I don't want to get into, but a physically abusive background from when I was really young. And I just had all this like anger and sadness, and really no way at that young age to know how to even begin to release some of this internal, tension.
And that's the whole clue to TMS, is that it's about our repressed emotions, which are typically anger and rage, and that it finds its place somewhere else in your body,
And then
which is typically your back.
Repressed rage. Woo! That's interesting, because I'm kind of a rageaholic. I mean, not today, sitting here as we speak.
I hope not.
No, but there's some clues to it, but there's sometimes no rhyme or reason to it. Why it just appears, or...
Yeah, I found that I can pretty much, I'm very skillful at talking to my brain and figuring out what's going on, like on the spot now.
Oh my God.
To where, like in the last
incredible.
year, I've gone through, I had one episode that lasted about a month, a couple years ago. I mean, I wasn't laid out, but and at that point I was already like, I know what's going on. So it was like,
What
constantly
was
talking to my
on?
Well, I knew I had TMS.
And then does it go away?
It's been like the last time when it was about a month for me, I was actually, you want to hear the long story?
Yeah.
I'll probably edit it out.
Oh,
but
don't.
I was helping coordinate a program at the Shambhala Center, meditation retreat, and it was like a week long or something like that. So it was a little stressful just getting the whole thing together to begin with it all. And I had to kind of hold the reins as sort of being the host of it in some way, and work with all the teachers and all this stuff. So I had all this happening, but it went great. And I had just gotten out of this meeting. We met every morning, like the staff and stuff, and I kind of lead the meetings, and I'm like, this is great. I'm sort of ninja catching balls and stuff. At some point, I'm like, taking care of this, taking care of that, really doing it. We're making this happen. And then I even have time to go practice meditation. So I like go into the meditation room, and I'm walking towards a cushion, and literally like the second I was about to sit down, and like this just sharp pain in my whole back, and I'm like, oh no. And I limped into the office and just laid down flat.
Totally
but I was
know that feeling.
Yeah. And normally, like in the past, I've had that a lot, and that would be like, this is horrible. I've got to rest. I've got to get medicine, But I was like, no, something's up. What is up? And I'm like, oh, I know what's up. I totally bit off more than I can chew. Like I may think that I'm rocking it, but I need a rest. People were walking over me going, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, can I take a break and walk around the block? And they're like, yeah, sure. And so I got up and I walked around the block, limped around the block, and I was just like, brain, not today. Like, what's up? Okay. All right, you need a little break. I get it. And so it literally, I got through it like it was nothing, and it was not a problem. I could just take care of things. Oh. The other thing that I've found recently, which has blown my mind, is when this happens, I don't know about you, but I'm just so frustrated and anxious and mad and upset that I've got this shit happening to my back, And
it's obviously always when you really need it to not be happening.
But I suddenly like shifted and went, I'm not mad and anxious and upset and angry because my back is out. My back is out because I'm mad and anxious and upset and angry. And that changed the whole game for me.
Like that slight perspective.
Yeah, it's like thinking
shift.
like, oh, wow, I'm actually allowing myself to be this mood, where normally, like, if I have those kind of things, obviously when there's pain, that's an easy way to justify it,
Yeah.
But when it's suddenly like, no, I need to be this way, or I am this way because of whatever, it's not about my back, you can just chill out.
Yeah, and the method is to not focus on the pain and act like it's not there.
Right.
And don't give it the anger and the frustration
and to work out, to exercise, to do whatever you would normally do. Like go about your normal activity. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. That's one of our 3 pillars of success, which is increasing physicality, Adam, or modifying. And it's really just getting back to just a normal, good fitness routine with cardio and some strength training and some stretching, and yoga and that sort of thing. But there's a lot of fear that develops around movement, understandably. It's our natural response to not want to move something that hurts. And that's usually one of the hardest things for people to get past, because as long as you think you're structurally damaged in some way and you think you're going to continue hurting yourself. So again, there's this idea that's implanted, maybe not intentionally, when you get the wrong diagnosis, that you should just, remain still. And it's really the worst thing you can do, because your body needs to move. If your muscle and soft tissue is contracted, well, naturally, it's going to continue to hurt. You've got to move it and just get back to good health.
When I was doing the 45-day TMS wiki thing.
It's like a challenge or something?
It's not a challenge. It's like a 45-day program. I was having a hideous episode at the beginning of the year when my dad had a bipolar meltdown, and I ended up it was just really stressful and family-oriented, which is a huge trigger for me. And then I was like, okay, I know I have this, so I need to be real careful. But nevertheless, it gripped me. And so I started to do this 45-day thing. And then that's where I learned more about like not being frustrated, like you were just saying, and to relax and talk to it. Okay, I know I have this thing. I know I have it. I've read the books. I just don't know, unlike you, I feel very unaware of myself and my needs, and I know what I want to do. I'm an action-oriented person. Like you're saying, I wanted to do all these things, and I was super rocking it and rolling and feeling successful, and then, it's like, I just go. My personality is to enjoy going, and I guess that's kind of probably another TMS symptom, is not to know when to slow down and stop, and then not to know when I'm even feeling, because I think I strive on the stress.
Yeah, and perfectionism is another big one. When I heard that, I was like, oh yeah, okay.
Well, I'm interested in how your perfectionism manifests, because I never would have considered myself a perfectionist because I'm such a slob, but I am in a weird way.
Think of another way to look at the word perfectionist, or the term, is to think of it as a non-finisher.
Oh, really?
Because I've never been a perfectionist, everything has to be perfect. It's like nothing can be shown unless I finished it, and I never finish it because I always have something more I have to do on it.
So the perfectionist personality has what we call three cousins. So there's that classic perfectionist achiever, they want to control circumstances and be the best and win. And then there's the goodist, who's like a people pleaser. And they want to have perfect relationships and for everyone to like them. They have a hard time saying no. Okay. And then you have the worrier, and worrier can go in two directions. It can go in the past, where they're always ruminating and reliving things that happened in the past, and or they can be worried about the future, right? And what's going to happen then. So this, and people typically have some combination of these types of personalities. But when I describe all of these, they all feel very tense, don't they? Striving for perfectionism it's not possible to get there. So you're always kind of not quite satisfied, and you're beating yourself up. And if you're a goodist, you can't say no, and you start resenting it because you really don't want to always be doing all these things for everyone all the time. But you're trying to be the good girl or the good boy. And worrier is just anxiety, on a plate every day. So it's just because that type of personality leads to a lot of tension and kind of dissatisfaction.
Yeah, I've noticed that's kind of the same thing. The same perfectionist that got me in the mess is what can get me out of it,
Yes, that's perfect. That's exactly it. If your mind can get you in this dark place, it can absolutely get you out. And so that's a relief for most people. And they can get on board with that and give it their best effort.
This is a perfect TMS Allyson situation. I have a dream of being able to sight read proficiently, and then also be able to write music that people can read off the page. And I finally started I joined a symphony. I joined the cinematic symphony where my friend Jenny invited me in. And I play in minor mishap, and I read-ish, quotation marks, I was reading music. But very slowly, and at first a lot of my bandmates would help me. I really was illiterate when I joined that band about 6 years ago, but slowly I became a little bit better at it. So I joined this symphony and realized that, like, I can't count. I don't know what 6/8 is. I don't know how to count. And I realized that I couldn't. Like, I didn't know that I couldn't read because I thought I could. And then I realized that this music was so complicated, and I definitely threw my back out so hard.
Really?
On joining that symphony. And it hurt for months. I also developed this pain in my shoulders that's still here to this day. It's not like it was, but I couldn't even vacuum for a while because I was scrunching my shoulder during the rehearsal, which lasts 2.5 hours. I would crunch my shoulders so hard, completely unaware that I was doing this. And then I would, like, the next day I would be like, I can't even vacuum. Ouch, it hurts. Why is this even hurting? I had no idea. I was tensing up so hard during that rehearsal.
Wow. Are you still in that group?
I'm still in it.
Wow.
And, you know, sight reading is one of my true joys. Like, I'm horrible at it. I'm probably only there because no one else wants to play baritone sax. Nobody wants to play those parts, or they don't have a horn. I mean, they know I'm not playing the right thing. And I would hit a note during the performance, totally hit a note when nobody else was playing. It was like terrifying.
Is this a civic symphony?
Well, they're a bunch of band conductors for high schools and junior highs.
Okay.
And like that. It's mostly what that is. So it is civic and it's community, but by the time I joined, it was at a very high level. I mean, most of them. I mean, yeah, I'm the only untrained musician in that whole group. I mean, I played by ear. So for the first 20 years, I've played by ear. I want to be literate, and I love it. I mean, I'm an intellectual, so to not be, literate all this time.
What would happen, like you said, you got a bout of TMS when you first started doing the sight reading with this orchestra?
Oh, yeah.
Did it throw out in the middle of it, or you went home and the next day you couldn't get out of bed, or? It
usually would be like, one of those things that you were talking about where you walk into your serene place and all of a sudden, like you.
That's the sound of TMS. That's the technical sound. When I mentioned like my back kind of like tweaked or something,
the twinge,
you called it...
Yes, the twinge of pain.
Twinge?
Yes.
Okay.
That might just be my southern term or something. Yeah, it's a twinge of pain.
That's good, because on the interview, we were just calling it ack.
There you go. Now you have a name for it.
Yeah.
I don't know where you get your pain, but I literally do throw my back out. Like when you see the little pictures where the person's holding onto their lower back and leaning over. It's like the first really, really, really bad bout was before the symphony. It was probably after, I was going through a divorce, and I don't know. It just, I'll throw it out somewhere like in a yoga studio. I've done that many times where I've done something in a stressful scenario where I've got a lot of pressure on me and a lot of stress, and then I'll do something that I could do yesterday or the day before, and then it'll be like, and it's like, uh-oh, that felt like it hurt really bad, but we don't know yet.
Do you know in the language of TMS, they say like you should totally throw out the language of throwing your back out.
Oh,
like that
really?
doesn't even exist.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, people say I threw my back out, and it's like, no,
No, you didn't.
Do you have any kind of language for the idea of one's back going out? Because we say like I had a back spasm, or I threw my back out. Is there any way to kind of change that language? Since apparently
that's a great question, Adam. Yeah, we want to stop saying that. I totally agree with you. My back went out, because what people do is then they lay flat on the floor and panic and don't move, which is the worst thing to do. So again, it's like if you reframe it as just a muscle spasm, a Charlie horse, it's not, you haven't wrenched something completely out of place. It really does change your willingness to move around, breathe, positive self-talk to yourself, just talking yourself off the ledge. We have clients who one of their action items is just to ask their friends and family to just not ask about their pain all the time, because it validates it.
Yeah.
You know, and like, oh, how's grandpa's back? And they mean well, but it'd be better just to go with a walk with grandpa or laugh with grandpa, you know, do something stress relieving, go out in nature, because it just validates, it becomes who you are. And we are very much proponents of, you know, pain is not a lifestyle. It is not supposed to be who you are. And that's what happens. We work around it. That's why we say we don't manage pain. Once you start managing it, you're giving it the power. You know, we all start there because we have to survive. And so we have a great appreciation for that term, but that term needs to go away too. We're not managing the pain, because that implies that it's our constant companion forever, you know?
I remember reading the book or hearing that inflammation is not part of it, but now when I'm going back and watching stuff, it seems like it is, and it's even the definition of myositis.
Yes, right, exactly. That's really what that means. And in fact, I want to make another point that Dr. Sono at one point wanted to change the name to tension myoneural syndrome, because that incorporates the nerves as well. Because you have to think of it as all soft tissue, because very often we'll get a client who believes this, you know, related to muscle pain, but then they're told they have some kind of nerve damage and they panic. But it's all the same thing. It just makes sense that, you know, if soft tissue is irritated and tense and contracted, that inflammation will form.
Do you take the view that it's always inflammation, or sometimes it can be without inflammation?
I think it can vary. But for instance, I was diagnosed in my teens with rheumatoid arthritis, which is all about inflammation, right? And so I was on a very different path than, say, someone who has the traditional back pain, where I think, you know, inflammation can still be involved, but I had a lot of inflammatory stuff going on. You know, I mean, I had swelling, and you could see what was going on with mine. Whereas with a lot of the traditional back pain, they say, oh, you have a herniated disc, or, you know, degenerative disc disease, which is really natural aging. And there's no reason that should be causing, you know, the chronic pain. So the great thing is that regardless of exactly what's going on, this process works to cure it. Yeah. That's a great thing.
Like Dr. Sarno even talks about, like, take a muscle relaxant and go about your day. Like, that's because it's tension. That's about the only thing that's going to do anything if you need it.
And you know what? After all these years, I finally freaking went to the doctor and got some muscle relaxers. Because I was like, the next time I throw this back out, it spasms. Well,
no, not throwing.
We're not throwing.
Not spasm. No.
Whatever it is.
I don't know. Whatever. Yeah.
It spasms so hard that I feel like I'm gonna convulsing.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
I mean, and it's tension, which people can understand that. I mean, that's the whole thing of TMS. It is tension. It's your muscles tensing up.
And it would be hard for any normie to not sit there and look at me and be like, you need to go get this fixed in the operating room.
Right.
Because it's even the doctor, he's like, it's going to keep happening to you.
That's a question I have for our expert too, is about how do you have conversations with people about this? So how do you actually approach people who are suffering back pain with the quote unquote good news of TMS, like especially if they're kind of cynical or, you know, so wound up in their pain?
Right. That's the first hurdle, isn't it? Yeah. And I'll tell you that most people who find us are already on the path. You know, they've read Dr. Sarno, they've seen a friend get better, they've watched a documentary. They almost have to be already on board, because like anything, you can't really convince someone, you know. You can show a lot of evidence and you can support them and move them along. So let me go back and I talked about these pillars of success. The first one, Adam, is changing that belief, right? It's helping them to reject any medical diagnosis they've received, which can be very hard at first, and to really get on board 100% that this is what's going on. Then we work on reducing tension, which is really the core of all of this, because we have to figure out, where is this tension coming from? Something in their past, their present, worry about the future, perfectionism, personality figures in here, and this becomes a real soupy mess. So there's some life coaching involved with this, usually a lot. lot to determine what they can do to reduce stress. We live in a very stressful, fast-paced environment today. So everybody's dealing with that in addition to their individual circumstances. And then the third one, which I already mentioned, which is increasing or modifying physicality, getting moving again with exercise and with daily activities. We have people who are afraid to bend over, because that's how the pain started. So those are the three pillars. And we get an extensive history about their life and what's going on, and talk about what they've been doing physically. And then again, present a lot of these clinical studies and other things to help them believe. Success stories, sharing success stories. It's definitely a process, and it takes some time. But people get there if they really want to take responsibility. And that's sometimes the other thing we have to get over, because they're used to things being done to them. Take this pill, go to the chiropractor, submit to surgery, instead of, no, I have to work on this psychologically and with my life circumstances and get physical again. And so it's can be a little frightening at first for that to all be on you. But for most of our clients, they kind of tend to be perfectionists, and they like to have that control back over their own, destiny. And so the idea is that this is a cure for life. It doesn't mean you're never going to have another pain ever. Of course you will. You're going to have tension in your life. We can't completely escape that. You have this personality type that we can modify, but we don't want to change people completely, and we can't. So this gives you the model. This gives you the blueprint.
What is the disease that, I'm trying to think of what it's called, fibromyalgia, autoimmune, like they say irritable bowel. They say all these things are really, potentially, I'm sure some people have these things, but a lot of them are potentially TMS.
Yep.
So I'd be interested in what the experts say.
Yes.
The list is really extensive, and I found a list that Dr. Sarno had shared in one of his interviews, actually with Harvard University, before he passed. And I mean, the list was just so much longer than ever before. So it's much more than back pain. Like you said, irritable bowel syndrome, fibromyalgia, even tinnitus, jaw pain like TMJ. It goes on. And we find that there's a new name every, week, it seems like, for something like chronic pain. It's, a sensitization disorder, a nerve disorder. It's just a collection of symptoms that they rename, try to say, and the doctors are trying to figure it out. We understand, again, what they're up against, but after decades and decades of people not getting better, you think the light bulb has got to come on here pretty soon. That's one of the first things we review is, okay, you told us you have back pain. What else do you have? Sometimes they're surprised by that if they haven't done a lot of reading yet with Sarno, and they realize that, oh, this could get better too. And even anxiety. Anxiety is what Dr. Sarno calls a symptom imperative. It substitutes for pain sometimes. And we often see this, they'll get rid of the pain, but they develop all this anxiety. And so we try to work on that as well. So it's sneaky. TMS will move around. It will try to trick you and make you think that it's something else. So, but part of the coaching process is learning how to kind of win that game, and shut that down.
So, have you worked with people with other things other than back? Standard back issues or back pain?
Oh yes, very often. For instance, I had a form of arthritis, and I actually never had back pain. It hit in every other joint in my body except that one. And so we've had other people with different types of conditions. Like I said, tinnitus, dizziness, a lot of stomach upset. That's a really common one. And that can be caused just from, the tension itself, and or it gets complicated because they're taking medications. It can be a side effect, of the medication. So we just try to unravel all of that. Fibromyalgia, of course, became almost ubiquitous. It was, who doesn't know someone who's been told they have fibromyalgia? But that kind of came out of nowhere, because very often there's no recall of being injured. People just wake up or bend over and get this pain, and that doesn't make any sense.
Hi, I'm a commercial. My name is Steve, and I don't want to be here. I help to create revenue for shows that my company sponsors by hawking products and services. For instance, I could be helping the Friends with Deficits podcast by giving you a special code for a special discount to go buy some special thing, and win-win, right? But sometimes you just want to listen to what you came to listen to, and you'd rather skip over things like me. Or maybe you already own the world's most comfortable toaster made from revolutionary technology. In that case, there's Patreon. That's how you, the consumer, who only wants to consume a nice little podcast, can support this show without listening to commercials like me. At patreon.com/friendswithdeficits, you know you're putting your contribution to something you care about and want to last. Toaster not included. Patreon.com/friendswithdeficits. Look, I don't want to have to come back. I've got other podcasts to bother.
I can't control my pain. When it comes, and I'm not as good as you about talking to myself and making it go away. Well, like you said, it stuck around for a few weeks and then it dissipated.
Now I can get it to where I'll get the pain, like something, I'm bending over the sink or something, and there's just the jolt. But my instinct used to be like
to make that
get over here, the classic TMS honk, and then I'd be like get flat as quick as you can. Where now I'm just like shut up, like I'm I'm like, all right, brain, what's the deal? And I just maybe it's not acute, like I know exactly what's going on or what my trigger from my past or anything like that, but just like I am tense. Like I could just kind of say like relax, Adam, because not just relax your back like you're trying to pray away the pain, but just like, okay, I'm tense. There's tension in my life. I'm upset. I'm angry because, like I said, I had no relationship. I still have no relationship with anger.
God, really?
I do not know what it is to be angry.
Did you grow up in a good home?
No. Average home, dysfunctional, alcoholism.
So you truly did have some repressed emotions or whatever.
Our family was like never ever kind of raised a voice or anything. Just sort of
that's because we were screaming at each other all the time.
Yeah, I think either way, it's some kind of avoidance. You put it somewhere.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So the way I see it is, we're just two sides of the same coin. Like you guys repressed all the anger, and ours was very on the surface. Me, my sister, my mom, my dad. He's still a rageaholic. Yeah, so we would just be screaming at each other.
Yeah. Do you ever rage like when you're raging, are you TMSing?
I think so. I mean, not maybe.
Well, what I mean is like if you got as angry as you have the capability of being when you had a bout of TMS come on, do you think you might work your way out of it?
No, because, and this is the answer I'm thinking of why it doesn't work that way for me, because I'm turning it inward. So I'm being so mean to myself.
Right. Whereas I'm not allowing myself to be mean. It's different. Like that's how I can be friendly to myself by allowing myself to be angry. You need to be friendly by allowing yourself to be sad or something.
Yes. Because sad was my avoidant. Because once the sad came on, and this is like for literally 20 years of therapy. It's like that inner child still. I was like, look at the fucking inner child. Like,
grow up.
Yeah. This is the first year where I was like, literally inner child everywhere. People, therapists. I mean, TMS, the wiki page. It's like, fine, I'll be nicer. I'll listen. I'll take your hand metaphorically. We'll go. And so I have started. Even as I sit here today, I just think I don't want to.
That's your inner child being all petulant.
Probably. I think it's my adult saying, grow up. We're not there anymore. And come on, buckle up. We're just going to, bootstraps, whatever.
I think that's a big kind of problem or just challenge, at least with humanity, especially Americans, I suppose, touching into your heart. I think that my path is like that, or being able to be vulnerable and being able to feel that tenderness, which, societally, especially with men, it's like, yeah, that's no good. You got to buck up. Shit's hitting the fan. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
And I think there could be there's a lot more room for people to just touch into that sensitivity. When they don't, you know.
When they don't, so I was thinking today, so here's a perfect TMS, like, sadness moment, where in the past I would have avoided being emotional and I would have pushed it away and done whatever I could to not feel. But it's like, my sister, and she passed away 15 years ago or whatever. But so this song came on the radio. I'm on campus, very near where her and I used to live. And I just had this like flood of memory of her in that time, which was a really special time, as it were. I didn't know at the time it was, but it was a really special time in our lives. And I had this overwhelming sadness that just rose up from the bottom and was like, wow, like I'm having lunch right now in a public space. I'm not expecting this flurry of emotion. And instead of pushing it away, I revisited that time a little bit in my mind. And I thought about her and I talked to her a little bit, which is also interesting because after she died, I was like, you don't talk to dead people. It's just really, that's stupid and that's what crazy people do. Like all these hard edges around what things should be and, and how they should feel. And I think the progress today was that I listened to it and I felt softness around it that time and, thanked the people that we were at that time and, it was interesting.
Do you think she's a particular trigger?
Oh God, for sadness?
No, for TMS.
Yes, because of the sadness. Like, I think it was there before, because I realized, I put the timeline together, it was definitely there before she died, but after she died, I think is when that like, started my lower back, where literally I couldn't walk anymore. I would stand up and just collapse during an acute phase of my back being misaligned.
Quote, air quotes.
That started after her death. And there's so much trauma around that death. Like, I let it out as much as I could and I would cry. But I feel like it was an abandonment trigger because the way I see things, even though it's not the way things are, is that my sister exited this world and left me to deal with my family. That's the way it felt to me. It's like, oh, thanks a lot. Now, my older sister is no longer at the helm of this shitstorm boat, and now I'm left to deal with it, and I don't cope well. I guess it's time to change the dialogue on that, but the trail of tears that follow that one, so she's a huge trigger.
Do you want to say anything about her?
About Lauren Lipkin?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, she got married to Mark Orton, a fabulous film composer. They moved out to Portland, and then she was kind of just having this fucking awesome life out there and playing her music, and his band was getting famous, and she was trying different things, and like she was doing yoga and jewelry and, little paths of, money-making, side hustles, and one of her things that she wanted to do, and ironically, I talked to her the night before she did this, which, we didn't talk every day, so she wanted to be a whitewater rafting instructor, so she went on this whitewater rafting trip. The boat capsized, and like 2 or 3 people fell out, but she fell out, and for whatever reason, her safety gear popped off. And we didn't know for a long time, but she got caught in this unusual shelf inside the water that no one knew was there. And so she never popped up again. And so people were like, where the hell did she go? And so not only did she, have this horrible drowning, but then we all had to fly out there and do like a fucking search party, which was horrific. I don't even think it's the death. That was horrible, because I love her so much, but it was the search party. Like literally walking through these like jungle thickets and going, Lauren! I was like lost.
Were you unsure that she had died?
Oh, I'm totally unsure. I felt like, because my sister was such a freak, like when we would go on these trips with our family, her and I are like kind of extreme loners, And she would go off and she'd be like, okay, y'all, I'm going cross country skiing. She'd be gone for like 18 hours. We're like, where the fuck were you? And she'd be like, oh, I met a guy in the woods. She would just go meet people. I don't know. She would just be gone forever. And I thought, she did that shit again. She met some guy in the woods, and instead of being benevolent, he's got her captured, you know, or... So at first I was in complete denial, and I also thought to myself, we're so close, I would feel her death. Like I would feel it somewhere in my body, and I didn't. It was a complete surprise. But then they did eventually find her when the water, so it looked like a class 5 river. So when the water finally went down, they could send divers down there to get her, and they found her. And my poor brother-in-law like had to, you know, after 3 months, I mean, you know, it was a horrible situation. But poor Mark as well, he's since remarried and he's very happy and he's got a kid, Max, but since then has just been I mean, every time I talk to him, he's like, I'm sorry I can't come to Austin again because I've just had this horrible migraines that were lasting for like 3 weeks. And I was like, God, we all probably have TMS or whatever. I don't know what he has, but I feel like, yeah, he's gone through a lot. Anyhow, it's definitely a huge part of my psyche and I think about my family, and I know my mom grieves as hard as I do, and I know she's got she's got it's the scoliosis that's killing her, you know, or whatever. And I'm like, well, you know, I've told her like 4 or 5 times, check out this TMS thing. She's one of those ones that's like, I'm a baby boomer, and here's the deal. No. I'm just gonna suffer till the end. And she has a lot of pain, and she always has. Actually, no, my dad suffers too. He throws his back out in his definition, and my brother does too. Yeah, so basically we're just all TMS Lipkins.
Wow.
All of us. You know, do I want to be considered a trauma person? Like that whole, it's just almost the way my brain processes problems. It doesn't work right. I wish I could sit here and say, yeah, my sister's death, as tragic as it was, I love her still, and we're just, you know, living this spirit world together, and, you know, she's just a dimension away or whatever. The truth is, I clearly have trauma. Like, I have to admit it.
What about the relationship between PTSD and TMS, or is there one?
Yeah, post-traumatic stress disorder. Well, yeah, it can be. That just really goes back to trauma. So we always say if you do have unresolved trauma, you certainly need to work on that. However, we cannot change our past, right? As much as we'd like to sometimes. So we have to find a way forward. So why we're fans of resolving that and getting some good psychological care around something like that, Adam, we say don't dwell there too long, because you're just keeping yourself in that tense situation, because the mind doesn't really know the difference between you recalling something traumatic and it actually happening to you. That's how powerful it is. We have this negative bias in our DNA to keep us alive, so we're constantly scanning for negative. We don't realize that, and it can really keep us in this state of tension. So, yeah, that certainly has a role. We have people who, you know, have things that have followed them into their current life, but that's where we focus on. It's like, how is what happened to you affecting your life now? Right? And what can we do about it? Because the pain is living in your body now. And that seems to be pretty effective, you know, for most folks. But we certainly acknowledge anything like that's going on.
If we just bring it back to TMS, the way that people get stuck is they're like, no, you can't tell me I'm not having this back pain. This is real pain, because the pain is genuine. It's real.
Yes.
But it's just looking at the cause, and it's a challenge for people to do that, because then you have to give up the sense that you've got something physically wrong with you. And that's really
I think the connection, that is really interesting, and that's how my mom would say. I'm like, I'm not saying you don't have your pain. You do. You have it. It's yours. But I guess I'm hopeful that as I learned to process trauma better and better each time, like each time you have a meltdown of TMS, you tweak your process a little bit each time, and you don't deny it because, you know, if you do, you're in trouble. Changing your thought patterns is really hard.
I live by that fear-based kind of mentality a lot.
Well, it can push us through many creative endeavors because I think it ties in with the perfectionism. I'm going to, you know, work really hard. And working harder, you know, will equate to a perfect outcome, which we all know, you know, it doesn't. But it's interesting when I started to capture some of those fear thoughts because I don't want to terrorize myself. And I don't want it to turn into more pain.
Right.
Fear, fear, fear.
No. I love that sound now. Have you ever had problems like playing sax or making art or something because of TMS?
Oh my God, so bad. So last year was one of my worst bouts of TMS ever because I made, you know, these 3 large-scale glass umbrellas for the Art in Public Places Tempo, and which is literally my dream job. Like I literally got my dream job, but I missed a city meeting and it set me back a month, and I had to cook glass 24/7 for a month straight and then assemble it. I basically had to make 3 large-scale glass umbrellas in a month. Yeah, I do warm glass.
What's warm glass?
Warm glass is glass you form in a kiln. So it's not blown glass and it's not stained glass, although you could mix those mediums, but this is all kiln-formed glass. So I cooked 24/7 glass for a full month straight, and even my liaison at the city was like, I cannot believe you completed this on time. I was like, I'm a machine. Are you kidding me? And in the process, I threw my back out. Not in the part where I always do, but in my shoulder blade. Something happened in that class and I was like, uh-oh, that was bad. And ensued the worst and most throbbing back pain. It was so horrible for the interim of that project. And then until we put it in the ground, and then only then was I able to taper off that pain. Nothing worked. Yoga made it worse because I heard it in yoga, which I've done several times. And so, oh yeah, absolutely. Creative, heartfelt, endeavored projects are some of my biggest triggers, which you wouldn't think because it's like I'm living the dream, right?
Yeah. This is a question I ask all my guests. What are the benefits of what you have? That's priceless.
The benefits.
Yeah, if any. I'm talking TMS specifically.
Right, specifically TMS. This last bout, I feel like wasn't a physical manifestation of pain, but it was like I was outpouring so that I didn't have physical pain. So this last bout of sadness that I talked about earlier in the podcast kept me, I feel like, from getting pain. What I'm thinking is that if I continue feeling things and processing in a proper manner the human condition, that I will develop or am developing through this process, like more compassion. More compassion for me, more compassion for people that are suffering, everything, mom, dad. You know, I don't know if you were to ask me this question, what have you experienced after seeing, you know, your favorite person in the world die, you know, my sister, tragically, like suddenly like that. The only thing good that has come out of that is compassion. It softened me in a big, big, big way. And I could only see that 10 years later. I think I spent 5 full years completely shut down, not crying, like bottled up hard. So I wonder why I have all this emotion. But I think compassion is one of the things that TMS could teach me. TMS is so confusing because it turns the things that I love into something painful at times when I have a horrible pressing deadline or a really stressful multimedia show that I'm doing. Luckily, I've never let that pain stop me, and I've never been in a wheelchair over pain like some people with TMS. It's so confusing because it does turn those things that you love into something that can be painful and confusing. What I've found that I've really helped myself with is to really try and enjoy the endeavors. I love performing. It should never be something that is hideous to me or I should stop doing it. What's helped the TMS, because I would get horrible TMS before shows, like that big show that I told you about at the top of this podcast, is to just really say to myself, like, you fucking love performing. Like, it is so clear, not every stupid show, you know, but this is what you love to do. If you love it so much, put your mind and body and spirit into it, you know, and put on a good show for people, even if there's only 5 people there.
Yeah.
That's all. Do you have any, because I feel like I'm sort of interviewing you as well, since you have this as well.
Yeah, this is the most I've ever talked about me on one of these.
Good.
So, yeah. I actually have a little bit of apprehension and curiosity because I keep thinking like I've knocked it out of the park. I'm not going to have this anymore, in a sense. And it does feel completely mental, in a sense. If something you just no longer believe in just ceases to exist.
It's incredible.
Yeah. That said, I have this feeling of like, good luck with that, Adam, because it's like you could walk out the door and I could be like, you know, it could happen, you know, so I don't know. So part of me is like curious, like when will this happen again and for how long? And what will be the cause? Because now I no longer will think about like my bad back. I will just think like, wow, my mind, what's going on in my life? You know, what haven't I resolved?
I mean, never underestimate the way their mind can trick.
Yeah. But it's still, even then now, I just think of it as like tension. I don't think of like, fuck, my back is acting up. I just go like, I am tense. My muscles are tense in my back. Like, what does that mean? Yeah, tension. That's the name of the game. Well, maybe we should relax. And
I'm going dancing. Oh, no.
Lucky you. Don't throw your back out.
I never have. It's happened. I never have. Nope. All
right, good.
I heard it once during a dip, but it cleared it in yoga.
That's good. Well, it's been fun. It's been great talking with you.
Thanks. It's great.
And may your mind and body be inextricably and happily connected.
Yeah.
All right.
Don't forget your spirit.
Oh, yeah, that thing too.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you. All right, that wasn't too painful, was it? If it was, now you know what to do. I'd like to thank Allyson Lipkin, also known as Dee Dee Dagger, for speaking with me. She also contributed some of the music. And a big thanks to our expert, Laura Heidrich from the Pain Cure Clinic. You can check them out at paincureclinic.us. You may also want to check out the work of Dr. John Sarno, or check out the online TMS wiki page. We'll have those and other resources posted on our website, friendswithdefecitspodcast.com. Please check it out, sign up for our newsletter, and, listen to the podcast, tell your friends, subscribe, check us out on Instagram, so many opportunities. You can also help support the show through Patreon. The website is patreon.com/friendswithdeficits, where you can make a one-time or a monthly donation of any amount, which helps us produce and sustain this show. Once again, I'm Adam Sultan. Thanks for listening, and remember... I love that sound now.